Okay, we're going to start solving trig equations, and we've done this before where we have to find an angle measurement. So we're basically looking at situations in which, you're going to take, oh, well, what's sine inverse of root 3 over 2? And that would be 60 degrees, and we're basically going to be doing those kinds of things, but it's an algebraic statement that we have to actually solve. Let's look at our first example. A couple things. One is now we're dealing with an algebraic statement. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an example where we're just looking at an algebraic statement. And if I was to solve this, I would just, subtract, add the 1 to both sides, divide by 2, and I get x squared is equal to 1/2. I take the square root, and x is equal to plus or minus 1 over root 2, which is the same as plus or minus root 2 over 2. Okay, so that's solving that algebraic statement. So now I want to find the exact solutions. So my variable is an angle. So I need to find an angle, and that's what I'm solving for. So I'm going to go through the same algebraic process, but I want to find all angles that satisfy that trig function for theta between 0 and 360 degrees. So notice I am going to walk through the same process. It's set equal to 0. I'm going to add 1 both sides. I'm going to isolate the cosine function. Divide both sides by 2, and I'm running out of room here. And I'm going to get cosine squared of theta is equal to 1/2. And just like the variable, I'm going to take the square root, and I'm going to get cosine theta is equal to plus or minus, and that's going to rationalize to root 2 over 2. Okay, so now the question is, what are the angle measurements for root 2 over 2? So the things that we talked about were, okay, we got a couple things. We got our all students take calculus. So notice we have both a positive and a negative because of the square root. So I'm actually going to find an angle in all 4 quadrants between 0 and 360. Now the other thing that's going to help us, this is a nice trig value. We wouldn't use a calculator. We could if we wanted to. But the idea is, okay, well, what angles give me the root 2 over 2? So we have this little graph, if you will, or a little table that gives us all our basic reference angles for our nice triangles. And I got the root 3 over 2, the 1/2. I have the root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, and I have the 1/2 root 3 over 2. Okay, so now I'm looking at this and saying, okay, well, which one am I dealing with? Well, it's the root 2 over 2. It's cosine, so cosine is x. So I find this one, it's a 45-degree angle, so I'm dealing with all instances of 45-degree reference angles around the unit circle. Okay, so I'm going to start working up here. And so that means I'm going to get a first, second, third, and fourth quadrant angle. So that means I got a 45 here, I got a 45 here, I got a 45 here, and a 45 here. I need to find all these rotations. Well, my first quadrant angle is 45 degrees. And then my second quadrant angle would be that rotation, which is 180 minus the 45. And that's going to equal 135. And then I do the same thing. Well, what's this rotation? It's 180 plus 45, and that's 225. Okay, and now I got my fourth quadrant angle. That's going to be this rotation, which is 360 minus 45, which is 315 degrees. So if I took cosine of any one of these angle measurements, I'd get the plus or the minus root 2 over 2. And that's what this whole section is about. is now we're dealing with solving trig functions algebraically and finding the angle measurement given we know what the trig value is. Okay? And this is the last section in chapter 14, and we're just finding angle measurements from trig values.